All right, again, welcome to the Transparency. Thank you for my new membership there, Mr. Mrs. Calvin. You are very much appreciated. We're going to get underway here in just a couple minutes. Going to give people a chance to get in chat. Rydell, thank you. Word up, hey. Again, this is Sunset Secrets, episode 3. The follow-up questions, answers, in depth, live for all the viewers that have seen the podcast and want to get a closer look. So again, I'm going to give people a chance to get in chat, give people a chance to get here, and we're going to get started here just at the 5-minute mark. All right, let's see if we can do this. Again, going to give people a chance to get, oh, there it is. Mojo follow-up, yes, it is. That is correct. Okay. As I'm waiting for people to get in chat, I am going to take us through Linmar. Today's follow-up is really important to find out. I'm going to take the past episodes and kind of bring you through Linmar and just exactly what it means to get to Linmar, where it's kind of located in. So let's see. All right. All right, here we go. All right, and giving people a chance to get in chat. Hello, Canadian Mama, to the moon and back. Mike, drop in. Mama. Again, hello to everybody. All right, I think it's very important we're going to get started here in the next 45 seconds where I'm going to kind of start off with, and then you guys can kind of go with your questions. I think knowing the area is very important. I think that if you're listening along, it's going to give you some reference material so that you can know exactly what I'm talking about when we're talking and things of that nature. Thank you to the moon and back. Hello to you. All right, here we go. So, to come into Linmar, this right here is going to be your main street. Going that way takes you to downtown Aliquippa. Coming up here, so for example, Mojo saying that he came, up the hill. Anybody that says they come up the hill to get to Linmar, you're going to come up this road. Okay. So when his girlfriend said that she couldn't get up the hill and she had to park on the side of the hill and that she had to walk up the stairs, these are the stairs that she's talking about right there. If anybody had to park on the street, this is where they are parking, okay? And they're using this to get up. Making sure you guys can see this as I'm explaining. Now, the police officer, so I'm going to be talking about episode 1, 2, and now 3. And the police officers, same thing, when they're supposedly coming up, you're getting to this intersection. And obviously you have to go right or you have to go left, okay? And this is your community center right here. So when they're talking about the community center, this is what they're referring to. At the time, in 2001, when you made this little right here, this is this intersection where Mojo was saying that, right here, that Jamie Brown's flying down here like this, and that Mojo's coming up, and that Jamie Brown basically almost tore his shit up, quote unquote, okay? Now, so that we can tell and see everything, when you're coming through here, this is a one-way street. You can only come this way. The way that you were supposed to go through Linmar is you can come through here and you can park over here. Over here is where the basketball courts are, okay? Right. That's the one end of the hoop. The other end's over this way, over behind it. This is all just parking. Now, you cannot go this way. You're not supposed to go this way. But when they're talking about that they went the wrong way on the circle, they're talking about the fact that they went this way. Okay? This is not the way that you're supposed to go. I've been up in Linmar, I couldn't tell you how many times, and I've never seen anybody do that. So if they were doing that back then, now, substation here, at the time, they just took one of the units and it was a substation. The way that you're supposed to go is you're supposed to go this way and then around. You're supposed to, continue on. If you want to go wherever you live, there's parking here. This is where, a little further, this right here is where the van would have been parked that had, right between here and here. Back in through here is where the apartment was of where the people in the van had resided. Now look at this. Over here is your community center. Over here is your basketball court. So the people in the van saying that they saw girls sitting in the middle of the road crying. Okay. Well, if you're over here by your van, which is going to be here to here in those parking spaces, you're saying that you saw somebody over here in the middle of the road or over here, but that's where they would have been, okay? And when the gunshots were, fired, the people over here at the basketball courts, they're over here, they're hanging out behind everything because they would go over there to smoke like Black and Milds, according to my interviews with the now, not minors and whatnot. But they would come over here, supposedly playing basketball, but that was their way to get away and come, smoke their cigarettes, do things that, teens try to, do with other teens. And where Officer Nime was ambushed was back over here. Okay, so see, basketball courts are over there. Ambush happens over behind and next to this apartment. I wish that I could go further this way, but it won't let me. And this is the way that you're supposed to go. But Mojo says that he came up the hill and proceeded to just wrap around this way. Again, this would be where your substation is, okay? So Mojo said he came almost hit Brown, came back this way. Now this is what you call like the middle section, the green space. See the big tree? When you ever hear about the big trees, these are the big trees. See all that green space there? Now back in 2001, that green space wasn't like, there was another building here and here and here. They got rid of those. So in 2001, there was like another, see how these are lined up? They were lined up there as well. Also in 2001, the green space here, right here, and right here, just like how these are lined up like that, they were lined up like that. One was here, one was there. He said he came back around to 331. He got to his girlfriend's, apartment. Things were weird. And then he left. And then he would have came, if he goes all the way back, you're going back through there. Now to leave, he then traveled back this way. But I'm kind of just giving you guys like a rundown of what Linmar kind of looks like. Now the way that you were supposed to do it, again, those are those stairs to come up this way. Him saying that he saw Darnell Hines running through wherever. This is the only path that he took was this way to go back there. He would have had to see Darnell Hines back somewhere in through here, because he never made it to the other side, because that's not what he did. Now, let's go back to this. Where the van was. You lock your keys in your car. You're all the way down here. And you're like, okay, one of us are going to walk down to the substation. So you're going to walk then this way back, which is right here, this building. He said that he walked there, knocked on the door, and that it was Officer 9 there, and it was right just before 8, around 8 o'clock. Officer 9 said that he couldn't do that anymore because of liability issues, and he didn't open up the door all the way. He said it was partially opened, and then that was it. And then he then leaves the substation and goes back and lets everybody know that, hey, they can't do anything. They're not going to come down. So you got your van parked here. Now, going back to episode 1 and talking about the officers, I want to show you what the officers are claiming, because you're going to really get kind of a picture of how this is not remotely the picture. This is your community center. Look at where the community center is. Look at where the substation is. Okay, do you see the proximity? Very, very close, okay? Again, though, the court's right behind it. Now, the officers, Officer Roberts, when he said that he went up and came up and went through, he turned down the one way. And when he did that, he stopped. Actually, at first he didn't stop. He went around the one way and went the other way. And when he did this, so he's coming this way, he goes around this way, which you wouldn't be driving this way. You're supposed to go the other way. But he comes around, which means you come like this, and then you're going to come around the little circle, and right here, either the van was parked here or was parked in one of these spots, and then now you're getting to the van, because remember, the van people said, we saw a cop who was in an unmarked car, and he talked to, so he had been coming, looping around like that. He doesn't say anything. The guy's just trying to tell him what he's doing, doesn't say anything, and then just proceeds and just keeps on going. And Officer Robert says that he left the police station, which is down on, downtown. He left there just before, a little before 8, before he got in his vehicle. That's when he heard over the radio that officers were trying to radio into Officer Nime, and that Officer Nime couldn't be located. And that also during that time, he also heard that there had been shots fired off in Linmar, and that would come from supposedly the other 2 officers, which were in one vehicle together, which would be Cassidy and Young, and that they talked to a minor juvenile male right here, and that they said they heard shots coming from the cemetery, which not a single person in their witness statement said that. Let me show you where the cemetery is. You have to go Let me go back to chat love. Let me make sure I'm not talking to myself. Okay. All right, here we go. In order to go to the cemetery, if they would have talked to a juvenile, which would have happened right around here, we heard shots come from the cemetery. Let me explain what that means. That means you are going, instead of coming up and going right, you are coming up and going left. Okay? So what Cassidy and Young said they went and did after they talked to this juvenile male, they then said they go towards the cemetery. Now, these are what you call the White Houses over here. When you get up this hill and you actually come this way, the other way, this is the 500 block back through here. So they would have went straight, kept going. That's your entrance right there to the 500 block. They would have kept going. Right here was the Linmar Market, right here. Okay, you guys, it is a walk. It is not, okay, it is not, just across the way. The Linmar Market is a decent walk, number one. That's your Linmar Market. And number two, let's go to where this cemetery is. Now, in the reports, the first thing that I noticed about the cemetery is that they said that there was only one entrance to get to the cemetery. That is not fact. You could get to the cemetery right here. See the street right here? You could make a right and go this way to the cemetery. The way that I think that they are describing that they're going isn't that way. They went straight. They also made a comment saying that they left Linmar to get to the cemetery. Okay? This is all considered Linmar back here. So, again, very, the only way that I can think of it is that they're just talking about that area, that we had to leave Linmar to go to the cemetery. Okay, well, you could have went this way up through, which is going to be the fastest way. But this is going to be your long way, is if you continue on Tyler all the way down. Okay, and then back then, this was an open bar. It's not open at the time. You have to come around here. You're then going to go past the red bricks here, which, again, people still consider this Linmar, just the red bricks. Okay, continuing. I mean, like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a drive. It's not like you can fly back through here. And then right here, this intersection, you're going to turn right. This is Penn Avenue, and you're going to take Penn Avenue all the way down to the end, and that's where this it got turned around here. That's where the cemetery is, all the way back here, all the way back, and here we are. This is the entrance to the cemetery, and it's a big cemetery. Okay, mausoleums back there, big cemetery. So when you say that you came and you checked the cemetery, okay, that's a drive. What do you mean you checked it? The cemetery, like, it's huge. So out with your flashlights looking around. Now, this is the other way that you could come and go, and it was definitely there back then. You can see all through there. That's all the cemetery. And these are considered the white houses. You could, though, if you keep coming, like this will bring us back down there. But back through here, like back that way, that's going to put you back in the area of kind of sort of where, because you got to put these two streets like perpendicular to each other. So this is Project, and then Tyler's over here running, parallel. But there's just like, this is going to be way higher up. There was at the time, and still is, stairs that you could, like you saw before. It won't let me get back through enough, but you could take actually stairs and walk down them, and it's going to be further down this way, right kind of where the White Houses start. So when the officer is talking about there's only one way to get to the cemetery, you guys, that's just a flat out lie. That's not even true. It's not true now, and it wasn't true then. So just to even make that comment is just not, just doesn't make any sense. When you come down this way, where you're going to see that we're coming to is back by where I explained before. This is the other way up to go to the cemetery, because there's your market, your Linn-Mar Market, okay? Actually, yep, right there's the market, actually. So for these officers to say that they were over here, okay, and went over to the cemetery to check it out, well, to check really something out in a cemetery, I mean, what did you just do? Just drive through, didn't see any cars? I mean, what are you talking about? What's a check? How did you check the cemetery? Nothing about that statement. It's all a lie, because not one witness statement says we heard gunshots from the cemetery. That was never said. So why would a police officer lie about where these, teens, children are saying that these gunshots are coming from? Why would you even have to put that in your report? Why would you even be talking about that? No one said that. What's the significance? But clearly it was significant for these officers to say, and I'll be explaining why. So here, this is your Linn-Mar Market. And what the kids did from the basketball courts is some of them, went home, and then some of them walked. So from over here, they walked to the market this way. The only way you would go, walk right here, walk on down. Again, this is the way up the hill. And that's how you would walk to the market. And then you would turn around and walk back. Now, I'm coming back to chat because I can't do both at the same time. So, based on me showing you guys that right now, do you guys have any questions as far as to see that when these officers are saying that they came up the hill and that they went right, or that they went, there's your community center. When you came up right here, when Mojo saying he came up, Jamie Brown supposedly flying around this corner, he's coming up. Community center, kids are by the basketball courts. Now, look at where supposedly, I shouldn't say supposedly, this is where Officer 9 was. Right behind here, okay? Basketball courts over here. I've stood on the basketball courts and looking, over here. You guys, you have to be all the way over here to be able to see that. Okay? If you're actually on the basketball courts playing basketball, that is not an angle that you can actually see anything over here. You have to be a little bit further over. Anyways, gunshots coming from over here. Check this out. Right here's the van people. Supposedly, the people that did this, the one person ran between the buildings, supposedly. The other person ran around the buildings, running along the wood line, which would be, this is like, see how it's like trees and stuff over here all the way around? Trees. Let's see, zoom in. See that? Trees all the way around. Substation over here. Now, the problem that all of this has written all over it is people hearing gunshots. This happened right here. And then, now, what time did these gunshots happen? And why would any kid say, guys, the cemetery is, let's see if we can do this. Oopsies. You guys saw how I had to get up over there. No kid said anything about the cemetery, about gunshots coming that way. In fact, people were saying that one of the shooters at the time, or the person that was shooting, turned and shot towards them. Actually, right there, that was a really good angle. Let me go back, sorry. Right here. Just a little further. Right there. Okay. Right over here is your court. That's the one. There's your court back there. Playground, which nobody was actually on. And then over behind there is going to be where Officer 9 was. So, if Mojo says that he's coming up the hill, okay, at 7:45, and he thinks that he hears gunshots at 7:45 while listening to music, there's right there, coming up, going this way, and he sees Jamie Brown coming around, whipping around. Well, the first thing I said to myself is 7:45, but the guys down with the van said that they walked down there at around 8, talked to Officer 9. Then 15 minutes later is when they heard the gunshots. And then just a minute or two later, that's when the officers were there. Right there, bells went off for me. First of all, if you're putting Officer 9's death at 8:15, which that's what they reported at, that it was 8:15. But then the officer's saying, well, we got up there right before 8. And people already had told us that there was gunshots, okay? So what is it? Is it that there were gunshots between 7:45 and 8, but then the people in the van said they talked to Officer 9 right around 8, and they walked down, and then it was about 15 minutes after talking to Officer 9 that they heard the gunshots. So if Jamie Brown's coming around here at 7:45 and Mojo's coming up here and Officer 9 wasn't shot until 8:15, how could Jamie Brown do it? Now, do I even believe that ever even happened between Jamie Brown and Mojo? Absolutely not. And we're going to get to that down the road. But it starts bringing into question everything, all these moving parts. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, really what got into the courtroom? And this is just why whenever you're given discovery and somebody like has to like literally go through it and do it all and put it all down and, okay, this is who we need to call and this is why. I don't care who you have as your defense lawyer to litigate anything and talk and cross-examine. If you don't have facts, if you don't have the information, who do you even know who to call as a witness or and it's sad because all of this was in evidence, but you had, or discovery, but you had to like dissect it. But Jamie Brown went to trial literally within a year of being arrested, okay? And I know people may think that that's a long time, but it's really not, especially depending on when people are getting discovery over to the defense. I mean, 5 years later, 1 year later after it all happens and you have everything and you're laying it all out, but when you're getting things and you're piecing things and it's just you and your small little firm and barely any money. I mean, this is a death penalty case, which I'll get into what I think about that later. But let's see here. So now let's talk about this. Let's talk about what the officers are claiming, because I think everything should heavily revolve around the police officers, because after all, I mean, it's the cops, right? So if the police officers are saying, just so we're clear here, if this is the substation back in the day, which is right here, you see like these steps and stuff, so people are sitting on the steps right by the substation. This is what they're talking about. And if you see like right here, if a police officer vehicle was backed in right there, right up next to the substation, that's what they're talking about. And then you hear, okay, the van guy that had to come, that was actually the owner of the van. So he comes, and when he came, when he pulls on by, he remembers seeing a vehicle that had like its lights on, engine running type of thing. Well, over here, where's this air horn? I mean, you blow an air horn. He doesn't come out. Oh, well, he didn't come out, so we're not going to go in, so we're going to just, drive around. Well, think about this. The kids are all right here, and supposedly there was, a gun, like gunshots went off. Look at this. Right here is where it happened. Substation. Crime. I mean, look at how close that is. So let me get this straight. Is it possible that the guy in the van that locked the keys, and when he walked down at 8 o'clock, okay, could he have mistaken the fact that he walks down after the gunshots and in fact talked to somebody other than Officer 9? You bet your bottom dollar. Because think about this. If the officers are saying, okay, this is where it gets complicated, because you can't have it both ways. If you got up here at 7:50, between 7:50 and 8 o'clock, how can you say that Officer 9 was shot at 8:15? you would have heard the gunshots because you were already up in Linmar. Okay? And that's what you are claiming. Every officer that was up there is claiming, okay, that they heard the gunshots. We'll get to Sonia Carter. Remember, Sonia Carter was up here. Darnell Hines sitting on the steps with somebody else, seeing her. She agrees, yep, that's exactly what happened between 7:15 and 7:45. Okay, she said that she was there for 15 minutes, and it was between 7:15 and 7:45. So you got Sonia Carter up there. You got Roberts. You got Cassidy. You got Young. And now you got a CI. Now you have a CI that's going to put himself in Linmar at 7:45. He wants to say he ran into Jamie Brown. Well, we're going to show how that's not even possible. But this CI is now putting himself in Linmar at 7:45. But yet, he was at the bar at 7:30, knowing that his girlfriend's there, buys her and her friend a drink, and then why would you ever come to your girlfriend's house or apartment knowing that she's not there? Why would you go there? You wouldn't. You wouldn't unless you needed to go up there, or it's not like you're going there to see her because you know that she's not there. So let's look at one other thing here. When the officers say that they came up, I'm going to read it right from this. Hold on 1 second. Roberts arrived in Linmar and made a right turn going the wrong way. That's what I've been showing you guys, how you guys make that right, which is very weird. Nobody does that nowadays. I guess people were doing it back then. I've been up there a lot of times, and I have never seen anybody going the wrong way. So Sergeant Roberts does not recall if he saw the victim that evening before the start of their shift. They both started at 3. It's 3 to 11. He knows that he did not talk with him prior to the shift, but he can't recall if he saw the victim. But he remembers that he did not talk to him. He advised that he had not had any radio conversation with him after he started his shift. Now, here's my question. This is the same report that, a lot of officers are giving. My question is if Diane and her sister called in a 911 call, okay? So Officer Nimes walking, when they say walking his route, okay, he's walking, all they mean by that is that you're just walking around. You're walking around just checking on things. Because a lot of people are, grilling out, hanging out. Hanging out under the tree. It's just, look at right here, hanging out. So he's walking his beat, okay? What I think is very strange is that a 911 call was placed saying that Officer 9, while he is walking, that Too Sweet and a couple other fellas drinking beer, eyeing him up and down, glaring at him with this, hate, and that they went ahead and just called in because they thought maybe he was going to get jumped. Nobody's mentioning that ever happening. Now, he says that Officer Roberts says that he gets in the patrol car heading out to get coffee when he heard the call go out that shots had been fired in Linmar. Okay? Now, according to Tiki Hayes, no, Officer Roberts has been up there on and off all day. ever since he gets out of school. I saw Officer Roberts up there all day. He was up there before the shots were fired. He was up there during the shots when they were fired. Because, that's when Matt told them, and that's what he's talking about. Matt and Jamal told these officers, and they were talking about somebody shooting at them over here. Never once was it the cemetery. So he's claiming that he was leaving downtown Aliquippa to then go up to Linmar because he heard that it came over the radio that shots had been fired in Linmar. Now, guys, think about this. Not a single person. Same thing kind of with, Sheldon's case. Not a single person that lived in that area of where the gun was fired. Come on, all these apartments right here, all these people outside, okay? Not one single person called on the phone to the police department, 911, and said, oh my God, there's shots have been fired. It never came over any 911 call. There is no call that day about these gunshots. And that's the same thing with Sheldon's case in 2020, that there was nobody that called in 911 about hearing gunshots. Somebody called in thinking that this person in the middle of the road was hit by a car. Okay? So nobody calls in. Why? Well, because the cops are right there, right? And there's a substation, right? But did anybody come forward and say that they went to the substation to say, oh my God, we just heard gunshots? No, they told police officers because police officers were there. They were up there. They were already there. Okay? So they're already there, right? So what time do I believe Officer 9 was actually murdered? Well, I can tell you this. I definitely disagree with the cops going with the time frame of when they, got to the body, and they're going to claim that Officer 9 was shot, at 8:15. Well, if he was shot at 8:15, then you would have, you were already up there. So wouldn't Officer 9 had to be shot earlier, especially if Jamie Brown did it? Your eyewitness that's putting Jamie Brown almost hitting him at 7:45. That is true. Kim, yes, people are hanging out all the time, all over, yes, even in the winter. So, Officer Roberts is claiming, and not saying that he's lying, because I don't believe actually Officer Roberts is lying about the fact that he would have heard gunshots fired in Linmar over the radio. I don't believe that he's lying when he's saying that he heard that come over the radio. But what I'm questioning here is, why would any cop, okay, Officer Cassidy said when he was on the stand that Officer 9 radioed him at 7:45 p.m. asking for him to call him. Now, is that like somebody just radioing in and saying, hey, this is 512, pick up 514? What type of call is he asking for? A call on the phone. Hey, call, I need backup. How is not one police officer or the dispatch ever talking about the 911 call that went out about a possible jumping to happen on Officer 9 at around between 4:30 and 5:30? So Officer Cassidy says when he is on the stand that, well, instead of radioing him back or calling him back, we just went there. We just went there. Like, wait, what? Okay, so you just went there. And then you get there, and then that's who says that they pulled up and they blew the air horn. So how does Cassidy and Young, who are in a vehicle, and Roberts, who's in a vehicle, and coming up and over here at the same time, how are they not, okay, and then you got Sonia Carter between 7:15 and 7:45, and then as you're going to hear here in the next episode or two, you're going to hear how Officer Robert Seelock, he's up over here at the same time. What are you guys all doing? What's going on? I mean, there's only so much road to travel on. And then when Robert says he came up, he says, Roberts advised that he had been at the station downtown, and around the time of the incident, he decided to go and get a coffee. He got in his patrol car, headed out, and that's when he heard about shots being fired. He's trying to give himself a way out to say he wasn't up there when the shots were fired. He then heard radio traffic that the victim could not be located. And that's when basically he's referring to Young and Cassidy over the radio saying, and trying to reach Officer 9 back. This is what he's saying. He advised that the victim was in a radio car and had a radio. He also was aware that Sergeant Cassidy had been requested to give the victim a telephone call, but he decided just to go up to the substation rather than calling him. When he heard that they could not raise the victim on the radio, Roberts decided that he would also go up to Linmar to see if he could help out. He arrived at Linmar and made a right turn, so he goes the wrong way, and he's going slowly, driving around that circle, drove around the area to the area of the substation, slowly. He carefully looked for the victim, hoping that he could see him walking his rounds, and that's what I'm referring to. He's driving around this way, going slowly. Again, he could not locate the victim, so he left. So when he couldn't locate him, he then went directly then to the substation. So he went around, and that's when he would have ran into the van people. He comes around, and he decides, I'm going to go into now the substation. And so he gets out of his car, and he goes into the substation. And so this would be the unmarked police car that Officer Roberts was in. He's in the unmarked car. He goes in, the door was locked, he's not in there, and then he closes the door behind him, okay? Again, he says he couldn't locate him, and then he went back to get in his car. Now look at this. This is your basketball courts, okay? This is your substation. And this is when he claims that he saw Tiki Hayes and his grandmother having words. She was calling him and asking him to get back in the house, and that he was being disrespectful of her. He told Tiki to stop acting like a punk and listening to his grandmother. The only person that he talks about right now is Tiki. He's not talking about Darnell Hines that he saw running through, unlike Mojo's talking about Darnell Hines running through. I mean, when Officer Roberts comes up, he's not saying that people were running away from anything at the 7:50, almost 8 o'clock mark, that anybody was running away from anything. Did he run into Jamie Brown as he was coming up the hill? No, he doesn't mention anything like that. He doesn't see anybody running. He's driving around slowly, okay? He doesn't claim to see anything out of the ordinary. He doesn't hear anything. He doesn't write anything in his report, okay? Which is all, this doesn't make sense. Unless he wasn't shot yet. But I don't think that's the case. So he says he goes into the, substation. Then he runs into supposedly Tiki Hayes, which is going to be right over here where they're living. So if he had that conversation, great. Tiki says that never happened. He said if he was to disrespect his grandma, he would get stabbed upside the head. And then he says that, which is really weird too, that he's talking about Tiki in a way that's just like, in the middle of writing this, he's like, he explained that a week before this incident, he caught Tiki with a baseball bat, and he may have been doing some damage to a pop machine in Griffith Heights. I mean, how is that even coming up in your written report? That's just out there, man. That just doesn't even make any sense. That wouldn't be what I was talking. I would be talking about who else did I see up in Linmar? Who else was out? But he wants to put in his report how Tiki supposedly was beating a pop machine up with a baseball bat. So then this is Robert. So then Robert's saying that after he wants to explain this bad kid of what Tiki is, which is, Tiki was on the edge of turning into a bad kid. What? That's going in your report? For Officer Nimes' death? Okay. Roberts advised that he, after talked to Tiki, he got in his vehicle and then checked the 500 block. Okay? Well, how about this, Officer Roberts? I have one question. If you came up into Linmar after hearing shots fired and you see Tiki Hayes right here and you supposedly have this conversation to him to say, stop disrespecting your grandma, why wouldn't you ask Tiki or his grandma, hey, did you guys hear any shots? Did you guys hear any guns firing off here? Why wouldn't you ask Tiki Hayes, hey, why wouldn't you ask the people in the van, hey guys, did you hear gunshots? The people in the van said you came around, didn't say shit to them. It's in the report. Stared at the guy. He's telling you he's there to pop a lock. You don't say anything. Then he says something else, and then you just drive on away. Then you supposedly come into Tiki Hayes and his grandma, and, after leaving the substation right here, and you don't say, hey, have you seen Officer Nime? Have you seen Officer Nime? Where is that in the report? I asked people if they've seen Officer Nime. I mean, what the fuck did you go up there for? I asked people if they saw Officer Nime and nobody, why in no report is anybody saying and asking, hey, have you seen Officer Nime? Oh, let me guess. Because you already know where he's at? If you go looking for somebody or you get a radio in, aren't you like that? Okay, that's like going and you get lost for directions. Are you going to ask somebody, hey, where's this place at? Or are you just going to drive around looking aimlessly? I mean, I cannot believe that this was in a courtroom and how this could be shredded to bits and how a jury could listen to this and find Jamie Brown guilty, acquit the other, co-conspirator, supposedly. If anybody thinks that this is a normal conversation that you would have, it's not. I mean, and now maybe looking back, Officer Roberts was how old, and my reports are, way more, in detail. But I would be asking people, if you just heard gunshots, you cannot find your officer. Hey, where's Officer Nime? Have you seen him? No. Okay, hey, have you seen him? Have you seen him? So this is what he says he does. He doesn't ask the people in the van. He doesn't say that's Tiki Hayes or his grandma. He then says, I then went to the 500 block. Because Officer Cassidy and Officer Sean Young, who are in the same vehicle, lie and say, oh, they said that shots were fired over by the cemetery. What? The people just told you that they were shooting almost at them, that one of the shots went at them. And we're going to get into those interviews here in the next couple episodes as well. But, okay, so he goes to the 500 block. So he leaves and he comes this way. You guys got to think about this. If they came up there, and the gunshots already happened when they got there, right? So that means Officer Nime's already dead, right? Which would be before 8 o'clock, correct? Based on their account. And then they come over here, right? And this is your 500 block, right? This street here. You know, and you're going down through here. These are all the 500 block. So he's over here at the 500 block. Meanwhile, Sean and Cassidy are up over here at the cemetery. Okay? And then he says, okay, well, I went around the 500 block and nobody, you know, I couldn't see him. Once again, doesn't ask anybody, hey, have you seen Officer Nime? He's just, you know, shots have been fired. All right? There's supposedly a girl crying in the middle of the road, according to the van people. Over here in the 500 block, nothing going on. So then, okay, then he says, after he checked the 500 block of Linmar and still did not locate the victim, he thought the victim might have gone to the Linmar market for a coffee. Maybe he went to go get a coffee. Yes, shots fired. Nobody can locate him. Maybe he went to get a coffee. Shots fired. Okay. So then he leaves the 500 block right here, drives up out of here, comes on down here, and comes to the 500 block. Or I'm sorry, comes to the Linmar market. And pulls right up into the Linmar market right here. And goes inside. And he says he thought that the victim might have gone to Linmar market for coffee. So he drove over to the location. He checked the store and did not locate the victim. He advised that when he came out, so he comes out of the store, that he saw LaToya. And she said to him that she was the one who knew about the shots being fired. She advised that she had been over by the playground with some of her friends. She told him she was with her friends and somebody was shooting towards them. Somebody was shooting towards them. How can you shoot towards them from the cemetery? You can't. She then said something about 4 guys. He was not sure if she meant there were 4 guys involved in the shooting or there were 4 guys over on the playground. He did advise that she was with 3 other girls at the store. So wait, at the store. Now he says that there was 3 other girls at the store. I thought that when you came out of the store, you know, so did you see them inside the store or was it outside the store? One was Chantel, and he's not sure who the others might be. It was at this time that he heard the call go out for Officer Down, okay? So check this out. He's saying he is here when he gets the call that goes out, Officer Down, Officer Down. Which this is what Officer Cassidy and Young, so they would have left, okay? They're coming down this street right here, coming down right here. Or if they really went the long way to come here, so be it. Either way, you're coming this way. You see a police car here, because that would have been Roberts. And you pass this up, pass Roberts up, okay? Pass them up. Versus, wait, don't you think there was no stop here to say, hey, have you seen Officer Nime? Wait, he sees all these kids again. More people, Officer Roberts did. Did he say, oh, I asked them if they had seen Officer Nime? Nope, that's not in his report. So Cassidy and Young pass the Linmar. I mean, they have no choice to pass this unless they really went down the hill way back. I mean, either way, you're coming back this way. And the funny thing, though, is Doug Edgell is seen, okay, which looks nothing like Officer Roberts. But one of the people that they never decided to interview said, yeah, Doug Edgell was in the Linmar market. And I was like, was he in uniform? Yeah. And I know who Edgell is. Everybody knew who Edgell was. This is what, is being said. And that I'll never forget it. Yes, it came over the radio. When an officer has their, officer down, need backup, all units, all units. He then ran out of the store. Well, that would put Edgell and Roberts at the same place at the same time. Number one. Okay. Or is Roberts trying to take the place of Edgell and say, well, those kids, let them think that it was you. Okay. So here we go. Either way, Roberts is heading back this way because it came over officer down, probably reading off, where they're at. And, comes back this way. Again, now this is Cassidy. Cassidy and Young, though, prior to all of this, right, they're saying that they, went over to the cemetery because a juvenile male approached the car and told us that he heard gunshots in the area of the cemetery. Okay? We then proceeded to check the cemetery and alert the other units via radio of the situation, that shots had been fired, cemetery. Sergeant Roberts was checking the 500 block of Linmar at this time. While checking the cemetery, we continued to try to raise Officer Nime. We couldn't. We found nothing in the cemetery and went back to the community center. At the community center, we were approached by another juvenile who stated she had heard shots by the cemetery. Well, who is she? Because all the girls, okay, they're all down at the market. So who is Officer Cassidy and Young talking about? Because no girls were over here. They were at the market. So who is this female that said, and now they're also going to say about the cemetery? Again, all fucking lies. So here we are. Again, they're saying that they were approached over here by the community building, which is right. They would have been approached right over here. And at that time, myself and Sergeant Cassidy got out of the vehicle to check the wood line behind the community building. Why? I thought that it was shots by the cemetery. But so what they're saying is that they came in here, parked, they got out of their vehicle, and then we're checking the wood line right here, okay? All along behind the community building. And that he said he looked back towards the apartments and noticed a large dark object. Okay? So they're walking over here, and then when they got over here, he's saying he looked back towards the apartments over here and noticed a dark, large object, and I call flat out bullshit. Saying that him and the sergeant and himself went to check, and that was the time we found Officer Nime lying face down on the ground. We checked Officer Nime and saw a wound to his left temple. We checked for a pulse, and there was none. We turned off our flashlights and drew our sidearms. We weren't sure if the threat was still in the area. Now think about this. When looking at the reports of the officers, no one's talking about that they ever asked, obviously, anybody if they saw Officer 9, right? But yet that's who they're looking for. But nobody's asking anybody if they've seen him. What do they teach you in police? 101 police work. 101 police is that when you tell somebody that somebody is dead, when you go to give a death notice, and what is it that they say? If someone doesn't say, like, what? Wait, how did they die? What do you mean? If they're not asking questions about the person, they want to immediately say, well, yeah, we told them that this person was dead, and they didn't do any, like, there was no emotions, they didn't say anything about it, they didn't ask questions on how they died, nothing about it. Well, how come people would go looking for Officer 9 and not be asking anybody that they've come across, have they seen Officer 9? It works both ways. Hello, Miss Flanagan. Hopefully going through Linmar with the Google Maps helped. So yeah, they're saying that Officer Cassidy, Officer Young were the first, obviously, to get to the body, and they put themselves on the sign-in sheet. They did approximately times, and they went with 8:26, 8:25, 8:27 for the, but somebody from Raccoon Police Department had 8:20. Okay. And this is where episode 4 is gonna take us into, which is gonna be, we're finally gonna start talking a little bit about Jamie Brown and where Jamie, was. What did he say? Did his story ever change? But everything hopefully gets a little bit clearer, that you get to kind of see what Linmar, looks like, what these cops are saying that they did. Okay. If you guys can look and see, if he's walking his beat, okay? If he's walking his beat and you're driving around, but he's like, was it normal that he walks around this way? You know what I mean? You're looking for him, but you don't ask one single person if they've seen him. It's because you're driving around, seeing if anybody's going to tell you something. You're driving around seeing what people know. But if these kids right here are telling you that they're at these courts and somebody from over here is shooting at them, why are you going off to the cemetery? Does that make any sense? And the answer is no. None of these kids, these teenagers' reports, nobody is saying they heard gunshots from the cemetery. You guys saw how far it is. It didn't happen, but why? Why do the cops need to say that? Because they needed to, at the time, get themselves away, because they were up there when the shooting was actually about to happen. But they needed to take themselves away from it because of who was going to do the shooting. They were trying to take themselves away from everything going on over here, because they didn't know how this was going to play off with, witness statements, right? They wanted to put themselves over here. But yet, when you actually read all these reports, Not a single person talked about the cemetery. Not one person talked about the cemetery. How could this not come up in court? And that's just sad. The cemetery is far. The cemetery is super far for what they're trying to claim. It's very far. And now, guys, look at Officer Nime's body right here. Substation right here. The van with 4 people in it. Then you're bringing another person up there that supposedly owns the van. Then you're bringing up a auto, service guy to get into the van. And how about this? If you want to talk about their timeline, they're saying that they talked to Officer Nime right here at 8. Then walked down, and about 15 minutes later is when they heard the gunshots standing over here. And then a couple minutes after that is when the guy that owned the van shows up. And then a couple minutes after that is when the guy in the unmarked vehicle is driving by. Okay? Now, do the math on all of this. 8 o'clock, if you had 15 minutes, that's 8:15. That gunshots would, have been heard, and that's Officer Nime going down. And then a couple minutes later, the guy comes up there to, pop the lock and whatnot, and then you have the officer saying that he's driving around. Well, what are you talking about? Because Officer Roberts is saying that he was up there just before 8 o'clock and doing all of that. And the gunshots already happened. Why did the people that lived in over here and part of the van, why did they immediately move out of Linmar and they have not been heard from since? Out of the state, not to be heard of. And don't you think they should be testifying in court? Because don't you think that has a lot to do with the timeline? That's everything to do with the timeline. We're going to go by their words saying when they got back. Well, how about this? You went to pick up somebody from the hospital, a facility, okay? There would be discharge papers that would have a timestamp on it. And right now, in real time, like I'm taking you guys through it, that is what we are getting and trying to get our hands on with a subpoena, is the timestamp of those discharge papers from one of the people and who, in fact, was being picked up from that facility. But let's say that she was discharged, guys, at 6:54 because they said they came directly home, which is a 7-minute drive. They locked the keys in the car. I mean, do you guys see how this whole timeline of them going over there at 8 o'clock doesn't make any sense then? And then how does Mojo saying that he ran into Jamie Brown at 7:45, which means Jamie Brown would have been done off the hill, okay, before what the guys in the van are saying that the gunshots were at 8:15. So how could Jamie Brown have killed Officer Nime if you even go by that and you're using Jamie Brown as your person? Oh, because the next report that Mojo gives is that it could have been possibly 8:30 that he, almost ran into him. Like I said, we're going to be getting into all of that, but you have to look at when these people wrote the reports and typed them up and put them into evidence, and all of it happened after Jamie Brown gave his accounts. And that's what's sad. And this is why you don't talk to the police. This is why you get a lawyer immediately, because you do not talk to anybody without a lawyer present, ever, no matter what. If it's about some damn candy from a store. Yes, his real name is Joe Kirkland. No problem saying it. A lot's going to start coming out. I know that I told you guys that Jamie Brown had a petition in, and Judge Mancini on September 30th he tried to keep it low profile. He is the president judge, and without having a hearing. Again, I'm going to do a special live for this because it's very important, but without even having a hearing, Judge Mancini didn't even look at it, denied it, and wrote that Jamie Brown being pro se. Well, Jamie Brown has a lawyer, number one. So how do you even mix that up? His lawyer does have 20 days to respond back to this. No email, no nothing, no, like I said, hearing. I mean, this 75 pages of a appeal that the petition that went in had been put in May. And like I said, just kind of backdoor slide it, didn't tell anybody. It just showed up on the docket that his lawyer happened to, because that's what you do. You keep track of things. But normally you get like an email or mail, like certified mail. The courts sent it to his attorney's wrong address, his previous employer. And it's just like, when you guys hear this and you guys hear all the points that have been brought up, it's very sad. And if anybody is deserving of having a hearing to bring this new evidence to light, which is Darnell Hines recanting his statements, A.C. Taylor, who was his co-defendant, putting in an affidavit and recanting his statements, and they don't want to grant this gentleman, Jamie Brown, a hearing, not to mention all the other stuff that has been brought up. It is unbelievable what Beaver County Courthouse is trying to do, and I have no choice but to go as public as I can and contact as many outlets to hear this, because the stuff that's in this is, we're talking about people recanting their statements. And for example, I'm going to give you one of them, and then I'll take any last questions. Again, this puppy is loaded. Here's a little piece of information for you guys. In addition, Two Sweet Smith was also seen with 2 9mm handguns and had indicated his intent to kill an officer while riding in a vehicle. A 9mm magazine with 26 rounds was discovered at the home of Ann, where Two Sweet originally resided. In addition, police located 1 box of UMC brand 9mm ammunition containing 42 rounds. 3 9mm rounds were also recovered inside a Sega video game system. See supplement to amended PCRA petition 9/21/17. The bullets recovered from the Wallace Smith residence were considered quote-unquote bullets of a possible match to those found at the crime scene. None of this evidence was ever introduced at trial. And it was put in to a piece to, Jamie Brown has been at it with his appeals, obviously, since the moment that he was found guilty of third degree. But all this stuff started coming forward in like 01, 02, 03, 04. This stuff was there. You have gentlemen that are giving, for example, Steve. I'm not going to say the last name. Steve from the last name. with no last name. In May of 2005, while I was housed in the same unit of the Beaver County Jail on January 14th, 2005, I was on the phone when I heard someone knocking on the yard door. I put the phone down to see who it was. It was Anthony Too Sweet Smith. He stated to me while he was trying to assassinate his character by me gaining something about, this is some, you guys should see how hard this handwriting is. But he said, quote unquote, telling everyone he's asking Steve, why are you telling everybody that he's a rat? I told him that I was calling it like I saw it. He stated that if he sees me out of jail and out of prison, he would split my head open. And he stated, when he sees me in the streets, my uncles won't be there this time, and that they can't save me from bullets. I turned to walk away, and he stated that that's why your boy, JB, Jamie Brown, is doing my time. Yeah, bitch. I killed that pig, meaning James 9. C.O. Finch must have overheard the conversation because he made Too Sweet back away from the door, and I asked the C.O. Finch to put this incident in the logbook, and he said he would. I am in no way trying to benefit in any way from this statement by me coming forward with this information. If this can help give a man his life back, an innocent man who's getting hell in here, I'm willing to testify in open court under oath of the facts in this statement. If need be, if that's it all needed, please feel free to contact me. My attorney is Collifeller. This gentleman, Stephen, May 8th, 2005, writing this report. Well, why don't you go look up Zambori, Stephen Zambori, and find out where he ended up in 2010 and 2011, which is floating in the Ohio River. Darnell Hines, putting his statement in on 4/24/2016, voluntary statement at the Aliquid Police Department. He said the cop said to him, quote unquote, "Your N-word boy killed our police." I was thinking to when I was in jail, I did not do this. So what do I do? What do you got to do? Because in one will do what I did. If they were in my place, they had me so afraid. I really did not know what to do. I was happy when I was out of jail. I was over my aunts before all this happened. I should have stayed in the house. And me want to be outside. My eyes are not good. So what I was not him. It was not, he wasn't the one. Someone that was the same color, but it was not him. I mean, this is so sad. The day of March 15th, I was in Lynmar Terrace Apartments on a normal day, chilling. And Russell asked me to get something over there by the playground, and it was getting dark out. I saw two guys, and I really could not see who they was. Then I saw Then I saw a police. Then I saw gunfire. I really don't know who killed him. They kept saying it was Jamie. Just tell me. I was so scared, so I went with it after 1 month. They beat me so bad outside and called me the N-word, then took me to the substation and beat me more. I can't sleep at night, and when I see police, I am scared. That's how bad they beat me. And I can never forget that I still need to talk to someone about it because I see them all the time in my sleep. Again, I'm going to go over all of this as far as the petition for post-conviction relief that was not even heard in court and trying to slide through the president judge really was not informed in writing that Jamie Brown is pro se. Jamie Brown has a very good attorney, and it's just unbelievable what's going on. And you have, like I said, I'll go over all of this, but the amount of things that are in this, and not even like the stuff that I've uncovered, because this was put in earlier this spring. I give Jamie Brown a lot of credit. He's done so much of his own work with his case. He has represented himself pro se at different times. You know, when people hear the words ineffective counsel, you think that your lawyer, didn't do, like that they were shit or something like that. You guys, when you have thousands of pages of discovery to go through and you're just one person or maybe a couple people, and you're getting paid pennies, from the state, that's why whoever is going to be investigating your case and doing all the grunt work and placing things together, that's your most important person. And somebody that could have come across this, Jamie Brown can't go and file for ineffective counsel. That boat has already sailed. He lost that. Again, he shouldn't have, but they denied it. But they are definitely trying to sweep this under the rug with this petition. It was very, very well written by his attorney. A lot of time went into this, and to not give Jamie Brown his day in court to hear this, and to let these other gentlemen come forward and speak, the only way that this doesn't get brushed under the rug is putting Beaver on blast. And that's why it's so painful for me to see what people do every single day with their platforms. And Jamie Brown should not be where he's at for this. He did not kill Officer Nime. There's not only overwhelming evidence that he didn't do it, but there's also now everybody that supposedly are saying that he did back then, because they were, coerced into doing that, had the guts to come forward and write these statements and want to tell the truth, and they're not giving them the opportunity. So, this is the same county and town and the same people in power positions that Sheldon Jeter Jr. has to go through. And so if you don't think that history repeats itself, you're lying to yourself. And if you're white, you should be happy because you wouldn't go through this in Beaver County. But if you're black, this is what you're going to go through. And then the question comes, though, is if you're really trying to get a cop killer, the cops just should do their job, the law enforcement period, because this wasn't just Aliquippa. This got passed on to the Pennsylvania State Police, and that's who actually took over the case. And so, if you think this is like the Aliquippa Police Department is corrupt, no. I'm sorry, but little patrolmen aren't calling the shots, guys. That's not who's calling the shots. That's never going to be who's calling the shots. Aliquippa is controlled by Beaver County, okay? That's who's calling the shots, and also big names in the community. You always have to follow the money. And we're going to get into that with all these episodes that are coming, but all I'm going to keep doing is giving you the facts. But the fact right here, right now, is that Jamie Brown's attorney only has, a couple more days to get a response in. And then, the judge, after, the response, he could then say, okay, we're going to grant this, hearing. But what makes people do things? Look at all those protesters for Gabby Petito's case on the lawn of the laundries. Like, are you kidding me? Get your asses in Beaver County and get to the courthouse. That's where you should be protesting. You guys, we have the opportunity to save a man's life. But we're doing parodies, and we're on the lawn of Brian Laundrie's parents' house, screaming obscenities. Like, people really need to check themselves. Yeah, wouldn't the cops really want a killer? That's what I'm trying to say, is that this isn't about... There should be no agenda when trying to find a cop killer. So you should ask yourselves, why would there be one? You go and you get whoever killed one of your own, and they don't go away for third degree. Okay, what cop killer gets third degree 20 to 40 years? And then the co-defendant walks. You tell me when the last time you heard that. And right now, with everything that just happened with, Floyd, this is the time to be reaching out to, the NAACP. I know that I'm on it. But this isn't okay. And this isn't going to stop. Because nobody stops until they're held accountable. That's when actions change. When you get away with things, it's just like when you're a little kid and your parents don't discipline you, and you're going to keep doing what you've been doing. Until you are held accountable, your actions will never change in life. So how is Beaver County going to ever change? You put them on blast, and you put a spotlight on the shit that they've been doing. That's what you do. I know that everybody's scared, but when you're public and you're in the public eye, that's when you're actually most protected. So stop being scared, Beaver County. Stand up for what's right. And get public. Because your kid could be next. And one of your kids will be next, because this is not stopping. Follow the money, and that's where it's going to lead us down the road. I'll go with you. Thank you. So hopefully, as far as the episodes up to this point, I think that, following it, if you go to your Google Maps, type in Lynn Mar Terrace, you can, move around yourself. But the episodes just keep showing what it's going to show, and it's mind blowing, to be honest, and it's really sad. It's hard. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to like look at my life and know that I would never go through something like this. This wouldn't happen to me. I would never be in this situation. And it's not even because of where I would live or anything like that. It's like literally because I'm white. And that's sad. It's super sad. If my kid's white, he's not going to have this issue, growing up. But knowing that somebody that I care about, like Del, she has a little boy. It's already happened once to her, eldest son, but super sad. And I know this video is going to get out to people, and I hope that it does. And shame on you, the people that are in position that could do something, and you fucking sit there and you don't. Shame the fuck on you, and you know who you are. You guys have a good night.